Donald Trump, former US president, guilty on 34 counts of falsifying court documents. A massive, massive piece of breaking news coming out of New York tonight with seismic consequences for the US, enormous consequences for this presidential election. Let's talk to Sarah Baxter, former Sunday Times deputy editor, currently based in New York. Sarah, a lot of people thought this wasn't going to happen. A lot of thought it was going to be a mistrial or even a not guilty verdict. 34 counts of falsifying records. This is huge. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. So the prosecution got everything it wanted. Donald Trump, former president of the United States, is now also the first convicted felon in history to have had that role, and he was found guilty on all 34 counts. I was among those who thought, well, could there be one juror who might hold out? But as soon as we knew that they'd only spent 2 days deliberating, we knew that the jury was probably just going to be unanimous. And sure enough, that only a short while ago, that news came in that they had reached a verdict. A hung jury would have been ruled a mistrial. The whole thing would have collapsed. Only would have taken one juror to hold out. But this is the full jury deciding that Donald Trump is not just guilty, but guilty of everything that the prosecution said he was in terms of fraudulently charging expenses for paying off hush money, $130,000, to a porn star, Stormy Daniels, with the underlying purpose, and here's the key thing, of deceiving the electorate when it came to the 2016 electorate. So just think for a moment what might have been, because basically the prosecution won its case to prove that Donald Trump effectively won the 2016 election fraudulently.
It's an incredible development. This raises the prospect, doesn't it, Sarah, of Donald Trump facing time in prison, potentially?
Well, potentially, but this we have yet to know what the actual penalty will be. And in fact, when Trump's defense lawyer, Todd Branch, tried to say that Trump would go to jail, he tried to brief the jury that, you know, what they were doing was very important and could send a former president to jail. The judge slapped them down and said he won't necessarily go to jail, and it was improper to suggest it. So we're left still on tenterhooks with that. The mayor of New York has said that Rikers Island, the notorious island jail in Manhattan, is waiting and ready. But it doesn't mean he's going there. In fact, it might not mean as much as we think, frankly. I mean, I just saw a poll saying that 87% of the electorate didn't care one way or the other. 17% would double down. 13% would double down in support of Trump. 17% might make them think twice. It could be a whole wash when it comes to how the electorate feels. So, I mean, and obviously the electorate is going to be the ultimate jury in this case.
And of course, Donald Trump's base will see this as just a sort of liberal establishment stitched up. That's how he will try and spin this and try to convince people it is. But those undecided, Sarah, the undecided voters, the independent voters that are going to swing and determine this presidential election, surely they will be swayed by the fact that one of the candidates in it is now going to be a convicted felon.
Well, Donald Trump has spun very effectively against that line on the basis that the judge in the case is allegedly biased against him, that the jury, that you couldn't find an unbiased jury in New York at Democrat Town, and the rest of the country might well swallow that theory, and therefore we can't say. I mean, it is definitely a historic stain on the presidency to have a former president as a convicted felon. But the process is not over yet. He's going to appeal. And we've seen that he can be very successful at dragging things out. He's already, through his lawyers, managed to push a couple of cases into the long grass, cases, incidentally, which were supposed to be stronger against Donald Trump than this one. But as I say, the US voters are going to make up their mind in November. And some of them are getting quite nostalgic about the good old days under Trump.